welcome to the Asset Revolution podcast, where each week your hosts from Arbor Digital provide educational opportunities for financial advisors and individual investors to gain knowledge in this emerging powerhouse that is digital asset investing. The Asset Revolution podcast is your connection to the future of digital assets and an opportunity for anyone to get off zero. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to the Asset Revolution podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, and we are going to have a conversation I have been looking forward to, I want to say, for at least a year since I did my deep dive into crypto. And it stemmed from a book that I came across and I read and was instantly hooked by the story, how much I connected with it. And even if you don't connect with it, it's still a fascinating read. And rather than me explain it and introduce my guest, I'm going to have her do it. Cleve Mesidor, please tell us about yourself and how you got in here. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I'm thrilled to connect with you again and also your audience. As you shared, I'm Cleve Mesidor. I lead the National Policy Network of Women of Color in Blockchain, but I'm also a public policy advisor to the Blockchain Association. Previously, I served in the Obama administration as a presidential appointee at the Department of Commerce and also worked in Congress. I grew up in New York City, which is really where, this drive for economic opportunity, economic growth really comes from. And now I live in DC, working at that intersection of blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Wow. Okay. So especially going to DC, I assume you're in and having different conversations than maybe what the audience, like financial advisors. You're more on that policy making and regulatory side. So is that kind of where you're in, where you've been engaged with since going to DC?
Yeah. So obviously I moved to DC in '99 for graduate school. I worked at CNN's Washington Bureau and then dived into politics. But I actually first learned about blockchain and Bitcoin specifically while in the Obama administration in 2013. A friend had a Bitcoin project and asked me for help with his project. I didn't get involved into this space until about 2015, 2016. And by 2017, I was all in. And that was because I was really I was really excited about, intellectual property protections, identity management. So for your audience, you have to find that connection point to actually really go all in. But yes, so obviously I did public policy in the Obama administration and in Congress. So as you know, since Bitcoin hit 20,000 in December 2017, Washington has been paying attention and the IRS wants this cut, but also, the regulators are trying to figure out how do we, regulate this space. For your audience, it is a misnomer that crypto is not regulated. Exchanges have to register at the state level because of money transfer laws. At the federal level, they have to comply with KYC and AML. The issue is for the federal government is, do you regulate crypto like traditional banks? What is that framework? Because a lot of our financial instruments and activities don't necessarily fit that well into it. So the crypto community is working with Congress. We want regulation. We want smart regulation. But right now, the regulatory agencies and Congress are fighting about who needs to take the first step. And the crypto community is paying the price. But I will say for your audience, though, monetary policy is at the heart of this regulatory conversation about crypto, right? It is, are exchanges banks? Should they be forced to register as a bank, right? The instruments that we've created, the CFTC says, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin are commodities. The SEC says they all look like securities to us. So where do we fit in? Because as your audience is thinking about their clients wanting these new financial instruments, there's a lot of uncertainty coming from Washington.
Absolutely. And that was actually very present in the recent stablecoin hearing that happened. It was a day or two ago. I mean, it's clear that there are regulatory entities that want that oversight of the markets of crypto, and they don't know which one should be doing which and one wants regulatory authority over another, and one says that we should have it, right? So it's just like, it's we want it, right? Like you said, like we want the regulatory, but you know, these initial steps, and actually it kind of speaks to also like, you're still so early, right? Like everything's so early, everything's getting worked out. And I know for me personally, knowing that you're there with your groups and what you're leading as part of those conversations is really important. Because I think there are certain problems past just the regulatory problems, and you know, those bigger problems. And again, when I read your book, The Clevolution, and shout out to your book, anyone who hasn't read it, please go out and read it. There it is. Nice. You seem prepared for this, which is great. But anyway, I digress. So tell us a little bit about kind of what are those bigger problems that you've seen through your journey that you are helping to solve?
Yeah. So I got into crypto because of my love for public policy, for making a social impact, for change, right? How do we empower more people? And that's the beauty of blockchain cryptocurrency. For me, it's all about decentralization. It's these diminished barriers to access where anyone can participate. Right now, anyone can buy any cryptocurrency they want, but more importantly, they can buy a fraction of that cryptocurrency. They can own 10, regardless of whether Bitcoin is $10, $10,000 or $1 million, Joe Schmo can buy 10 cents of it, they probably $10 of it. And that's revolutionary, because for me, what's driving me into this space is the fact that with our current and the traditional financial system, many in our community have been locked out, right? And it's not just Black and Latinx communities, it's rural communities as well. So America cannot go into the innovation economy and be competitive with so many key parts of our demographics essentially left behind. And so that's been the great thing about, you know, and I think fintechs, to give them credit, they started us on this path of the democratization of money. And as we digitize money, making it more accessible, right? And then crypto certainly has really broken down the walls. But the heart of this for me, it is, how do we ensure more people can participate in the financial system, right? More people can have control over their financial future. And also for your audience, right? That means new investors, new people who are building wealth and looking at ways to invest that wealth and grow that wealth and build generational wealth.
Oh, see, this is why this is an important conversation, because I think a lot of advisors, and myself included, right? You know, we grew up in the traditional world. We spent years and years, 10 plus, 20 plus, 30 plus, where there may have been groups or certain segments and demographics of clients we would love to have served, but due to business scaling or, you know, barriers through cost structures, we couldn't really give the quality service and the quality wealth management. And, you know, it's been a disservice. Let's be real, of being able to serve everyone with the same quality that, you know, people of wealth, right? And that's why crypto, I know for me is, and I made a post about this on LinkedIn, I've made multiple, and why I love what you do, is that crypto is going to accelerate the adoption of new ways for new groups to generate wealth. And that means new clients, new ways of managing wealth, new behaviors, new psychological tendencies, right? It's going to bring a whole new element that we haven't had access before. And that's huge, right? And so tell us a little bit more about those, you know, kind of groups. And because I think there's a lot of innovators. I was listening to a panel you were on, and it was like something like 90% or 96% of VC firms and decision makers and executives at those firms were white men, and there was only 4% that were of color or of, you know, women, right? Crypto is going to accelerate the amount of women and underserved groups that can do those groups and everything. So tell us a little bit about how you see make this tangible for the audience. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, well, the investor landscape is changing in America, and crypto is really driving that change, right? And I think one of the biggest things we need to tackle, we need to dismantle, we need to demand that Washington changes is the rules around accredited investors. Right? It continues to be set up to keep people out. And when you look at the amount of new investors coming into the space, and even with Robinhood made it so that anyone with an app can purchase an IPO that goes live or stocks that are accessible to just investors. That's huge, but that means new people are coming to the table building investment portfolios who need investment portfolios. And even when you look at the generational wealth shift that's going to happen, boomers who are going to transition their wealth to Zoomers and some millennials eventually, we know that, millennials and Zoomers, they don't invest in the same way that traditional investors did, right? So they're not going to, just because they're inheriting the wealth of their, grandparents or parents, they're not going to want to be accredited investors, right? They're going to want flexible, innovative financial instruments to build wealth on. And if the traditional financial institution doesn't include them, they will go to another way, another option, right? And so that should crystallize it for your audience. But when you look at Black and brown communities who have been locked out, right? People who are just now building wealth, who want opportunities, right? That's where we are at in terms of who are some of these people? It's women, it's people of color, it's millennials, it's LGBTQ communities. There's an agency called FINRA. They actually do a good job of capturing these new investors to see how they're approaching. In the work that I do, I focus a lot on women of color. We need more women to become investors, but women don't like to take risks because they're often head of households and their disposable income is precious, right? Which is why financial literacy has to be part of the conversation, right? We are getting to a space where new investors do not even fit into that mold of the accredited investor, but we need to make sure that as they're coming into especially emerging technologies and leveraging new financial instruments, that they're aware about some of the risks and the opportunities and that they can actually protect themselves along the way. I hope that answered your question a bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways you answered it and much deeper than I was hoping. So thank you. And that leads into, you mentioned this thing, literacy and education, right, is so important, which is why, reading books like yours or getting up to speed on what these are. And that makes it, so I think that leads me into kind of like this idea of like investor protection that we've seen in the current regulatory regime, right? Like there are all these things like, and there's been a lot of pushback actually on the most recent ETF that was released, right? Is that actually protecting investors by releasing that type of investment vehicle for your traditional non-accredited investors and for advisors to give their clients access to? Is that really the best option in terms of protection, right? And so tell us a little bit about, because I know you've been doing some work on that too, like how are things shifting in terms of how we think about just even protecting investors? What are you seeing there? Oh, you're on mute, Cleve. I think you might have accidentally hit the mute button.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I had a siren behind me before. Yeah. First of all, there is no justification for the SEC approving a Bitcoin futures ETF and not a Bitcoin spot ETF. Like it doesn't. It's just more of a control issue for Secretary Gensler and wanting to, really be that cop, right? So the industry will continue to push back on that, but irregardless, right? Getting, even a Bitcoin futures ETF pushed forth was a good thing, right? Was actually very helpful. But we need to do more. And as we look at, how regulation is moving forward and the financial instruments that are being put forth, right? We have to look at, we have to admit that consumer protectionism is just protectionism, right? And it is from a time when it's taking place under assumption that we don't have agency, that the average person who is not wealthy, right, who may be working class or even lower middle class, cannot make these decisions for themselves. And we're seeing it drive public policy, Washington policy, right? Consumer protection is the justification for why we need to really scrutinize stable coins, right? Why we can't do a spot ETF, why a Bitcoin spot ETF, or why we have to be very cautious about and look at these things as securities. Protectionism is Congress's way of in my opinion, disrespecting consumers, telling us we don't have agency. But it's also because they don't have enough tools in their toolbox, right? So if we need consumer protections, and we absolutely do, then we need to invest in financial literacy. We need to invest in skills training. We need to invest in making sure that companies have customer support, and when they don't, hold them accountable for it. But Washington acts like the option is, let's ban crypto, let's regulate these things to death so that they go away. So I am very concerned about this fallback on consumer protectionism, because at the end of the day, the only people it hurts is the everyday person, right? It doesn't hurt the large players, right? They have large legal teams and funding to offset some of these measures. It just keeps the average person from becoming a new investor, from generating wealth.
Yeah. It's really important too, because I think it leads into this, the conversation about who's been innovating as well in the space, right? Like, I think that's another shift. And I think one of the things that crypto brings with it is this accelerant to new groups being able and having access to being able to innovate in technology, right? So can you tell us a little bit about what are you seeing in terms of that area, the innovation? Who's innovating, right? Who are the groups?
Yeah. So the innovation that's happening in crypto, I think, is what's going to offset some of the volatility we see in the prices of crypto right now, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at the marketplace, NFTs have been a huge innovation. I know we hear about the buzz and the hype and all of this hoopla, but when you look at America's creative economies, when you look at the last 2 decades, cities across the nation have been looking at how do they become a smart city? How do they start looking at industries, local industries that they can grow? And it has been their creative industries. And because of NFTs, creative economies have generated the most revenue in the last 2 years than they have in probably in the last decade. So the innovation is taking place, and the marketplace is responding, right? Consumers are not, when you look at creators, they're not gravitating to an NFT because they love crypto. Please, they could care less. What they see is a tool that allows them to first protect their intellectual property, then create a marketplace to monetize their art, and then to actually sell it. It's a win-win for them. And so, and we're seeing that with Web3, right? This whole conversation about Web2 that we're in right now, and a lot of the problems that we have, and the consensus that we need to build a decentralized web where we can leverage AI and machine learning to create a customized and secure experience, but also leverage blockchain to ensure, secure peer-to-peer engagements, and also facilitate microtransactions, right? So there you have an innovation where we can actually tackle an existing problem, and the industry is saying, yes, we do need Web3. Yes, emerging technologies help us move there. So the innovation is actually fueling the marketplace, which then will help us, because right now we don't have enough runway, right, to actually understand what is driving the price of Bitcoin, right? The only thing we do know that your listeners should know, it has never gone, in 2011, it went to $1. It has never gone back to $1, right? In my opinion, cryptocurrencies have self-mechanisms, especially Bitcoin, that all cryptos follow. When there's too much, speculation, when there's too much hype, right? the price goes down, but it always goes back after it levels out, after the industry realizes, okay, now we have to go back to building, like go back to the basics. So innovation is really going to drive this. And innovation is the reason it's now a $3 trillion market.
Yeah. Well, okay. So a couple of things there, and I want to dive into. So first thing is that kind of use right there where Bitcoin has never gone back down to $1, how it self-regulates. That's the idea, decentralization, so important. And that's something you talk a lot about in your book in a very a unique way, which I want you to dive into. But before we do that, tell us a little more, because you mentioned the innovators and the creators and how they're taking ownership, digital property rights. You made that tangible for the audience. Who are those groups? Because I think that it's very important to know that it's not the same groups that were innovating and creating over the last 20, 30 years. These new groups, right? These new demographics. So tell us about what you're seeing there.
Yeah, the great thing about blockchain technology is built on cryptography, which is just math. So it's a little different than big tech, right? That's really driven by coders. And when you look at traditional tech, the coders have all the control, right? They build the products, they decide how they develop, and they put them in the marketplace. And for me, blockchain is much more, it's a very solutions-driven technology that it exists to solve a problem, right?
Yeah.
But also it's not intended to be just technical, right? Because it is really about, especially when you look at smart contracts, what's the governance of that smart contract? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Because decentralization allows you to leverage the technology to create opportunities for peer-to-peer engagements and transactions that are determined by these tools, so you can eliminate the middleman, right? Mm-hmm. So the technology itself, different than what we've seen, traditional tech is a pathway where very few people ends up owning the technology. And very few people are the ones who are able to create and build. So therefore, the public can primarily be consumers, and that's it. And here, with blockchain, it is an opportunity for anyone to actually build and create a marketplace and lead their marketplace. So it is an opportunity to create an economy that's driven by producers and not just consumers, but also to do things very differently than we have done before. So, entrepreneurship is going to drive the innovation economy, because there's no need to create corporations in the same way that we have that become too big to fail, right? And that is why, an individual can actually create his or her own currency, can actually also create a business just based on the network that you have. And I know for your audience, right, they're probably thinking, that this goes against the way that they actually do money management or the type of clients that they have. But let's face it, we've been trying to digitize money for, generations now. But also the economy has been changing, and millennials changed so much with the sharing economy. So we are already on this trajectory where we're going to function differently. Who would have known that we could be in the 21st century where 6-year-olds can become millionaires just from being YouTube personalities that's just opening gifts, right? You heard of the little boy who people just want to watch him open gifts. But even before that, remember Twitch, the gaming site, when it first came online a few years ago, it was just people watching gamers play, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't, so we underestimate this new economy that's going to be driven by individual content that's then monetized, where we're building wealth very differently, or creating assets that are non-traditional. And that's going to disrupt the system. But when you look at, Zoomers and millennials, they're such large generations. They have the consumer base to, generate revenue from just about anything they produce.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you saying that. And it's important that we cover, because a lot of advisors right now are at the stage where, okay, we've gotten educated, or at least starting the education process and coming to the side, okay, I believe in the technology. I believe that this is going to make big shifts. So right now they may be only thinking in terms of, let me allocate. Let's do an investment allocation. What you're talking about is very, if not more important too. If you're an advisor, think about it in that you're missing an opportunity. And this is what we tell our clients as well, is that the real opportunity, or maybe not the real one, but an elevated opportunity that exists right now, is to help you differentiate and grow your business and adapt. And so, and there's another, so Tyrone Ross, he's another big advocate, and I'm sure you understand. We love him and the work he does and what he's about. Shout out Tyrone. He talks a lot about this, and it's like, it's not just about investing in it and allocating. It's about setting your firm up for the future, wealth creator, for the future content creator, for the future asset creator. And if you're not building towards that, then you're going to be left behind. And we certainly, and that's why Arbor Capital and Arbor Digital was great, because we absolutely feel that. But I want to switch gears a little bit. So are you seeing more innovators, in groups like, people of color, women, LGBTQ? Are you seeing those, groups that maybe usually in the traditional world weren't able to innovate as much and be a part of that group? Are they a part of that now?
Yeah, well, I would say that I don't think it's fair to say that they weren't there, right? In this first iteration of the web, right? I think entrepreneurs of color have always been part of this marketplace. As you mentioned in the lead-in, is the fact that for the tech boom, for the tech industry, the traditional tech industry, for big tech, it's really been driven by VCs who have a pedigree that they're looking for, right? They want a specific type of project by a specific type of founder. So that's why, that is probably why in the last few decades, we've seen more independent contractors, entrepreneurs, right? E-commerce businesses, individuals who can just, create their little business and, and sell on, Shopify or Amazon, right? Because they could not get the VC funding. So these entrepreneurs have been fueling innovation, right? Because they are the reason why Shopify and Amazon started, right? It was to create a way that they can, be able to, distribute to large volumes. But I think what's different now is the fact that the emerging technologies that are driving, economic growth or small business growth or entrepreneurship are less restrictive than traditional tech, right? So when you look at blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, none of these things require a degree. Or they're all things that you could go to DeVry, get a certificate program. You can actually go do a 1-year certificate course and get a job in cybersecurity tomorrow, making $70,000 a year. So that has been the game changer for a lot of these entrepreneurs that have gone to non-traditional routes to actually compete. Now they have new technologies that they can access, artificial intelligence that they can build into their projects to jumpstart the marketplace. And I think that's what's different. It's not that, Black, Latinx, LGBTQ folks, couldn't participate before. They had to do it on such a micro level that it was negligent, the revenue that they could generate. And now emerging technologies offer them an opportunity to leapfrog and also access that marketplace, so that consumer base that they've been building, that they didn't really know how to really grow and really monetize before.
See, this is another reason why we host podcasts and why they're so powerful, is because even me, I get to get in a moment of learning, right? So thank you for taking me through that. So if I'm going through it, I know a lot of my listeners are, or anybody else who's listening, whether you're an advisor or not, definitely taking away something from there. So I want to use that as a way to then maybe transition into some of the groups that you're leader of, or a part of, and a lot of great things are happening. So take us through what are some of the groups? What do they do? What are some of the initiatives that are going on right now?
Yeah. So there's a few projects that I love that I would love to have your readers check out. One of them is called GuapCoin, GUAP, GuapCoin. It was created by Tavonia Evans, a Black woman who 5 years ago created a cryptocurrency. Creating a cryptocurrency is hard, but she's a developer by trade. And she wanted this currency to actually support the Buy Black movement, right? This whole buy Black, buy in your community. So she actually created a currency for that. And as it has evolved, obviously it's more now of, a currency for economic empowerment. But, she was just on, CNN talking about the reason for creating the currency. It was about economic empowerment, but it was all about, this agency that people of color, Black communities wanted to have. And why not have a currency that will drive growth, that will drive, those business opportunities. So definitely check out Guapcoin. She's doing some amazing things. And oh my God, there's an entrepreneur who she's just a serial entrepreneur. Her name is Dawn Dixon.
Okay.
Her company is Popcom. And Popcom is, all she's doing is disrupting the vending machine business. Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up, vending machines were for gum and candy bars. But today we know you can buy Louis Vuitton shoes in a vending machine. But she's going further. She's creating vending machines that can actually sell cannabis and other federally regulated products. Now that means that they have to verify identity in a way that government mandates, right? Mm-hmm. So for Dawn, when she was building Popcorn, that was her pain point, right? She needed a way to verify identity in a vending machine in a way that complied with federal regulations. She found a tool, that was based on blockchain, and it just fit, right? So I love that example because she is an entrepreneur who simply had a problem. So I do think, we do a service to blockchain when we're using it to solve a problem, not to create hype and a splash, right? So she doesn't call herself a blockchain founder, but blockchain was the success story that drove this. And so I use her example because we need to let people know they don't have to become a Bitcoin person, right? They don't have to, do all of these other things. They can stay in their lane and then, just add this piece. And then there's so many great DeFi projects out there, right? And there's a good friend who has one called Snowball, right? And so these, So amazing, very exciting. And then obviously, what people are doing with DAOs, not a new concept. I'm sure your audience thinks, oh my God, isn't that, back in the day where you just created a way of people coming together, pooling their money so that they can invest in something. Most of crypto they're not new ideas. What they just have is cryptography as, the technology that has really helped to manifest some of these into existence. But, we saw the example with the Constitution DAO that was created by, people came together because they wanted to buy that, I think it was Christie's that was auctioning off the copy of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And ironically, they raised $60 million to do it. And the person who did buy it, it is an anti-Bitcoin person.
Was it?
Yes. An anti-Bitcoin person swooped in and said, not today, crypto people, not on my watch. But it showed the example of, again, for Constitution DAO, these were not crypto people. These were just people who wanted to be a part of something. And they actually created Constitution DAO. They created the governance that if they didn't get this one thing, it dissolved. Everybody got their money back minus the fees. So I love projects where you can be experimental, like Constitution DAO, where you're not looking to make money, but you're trying to get more people to think about new ways to engage, new ways to participate. Or even Dawn and Popcom, where you're saying, if you're just a regular business person, look for the solutions that can help you. Or if you're Tavonia, you're actually creating a currency to actually fuel a movement, right? Because the participatory piece is important. When we look at COVID, the biggest casualties of COVID were professional women at the height of their career, executives, who had no choice but to go back home because they are heads of households. They're caring for children and parents. And even since we've tried to open up, they still are not in a position to go back, right? So our workforce has actually, lost so much. But these professionals, right, are thinking about how do I go back to a workplace, right, that will actually allow me, because I still have to take care of my family, that intergenerational group of people that are depending on me. So they want a new workplace, right, that is much more, not just flexible, where they care about, they will accommodate the personal priorities you have, but also you can be virtual and you can be creative and you can use your talents in unique ways. So I do think, because of COVID, we're going to see more women not just look to, crypto as an investment tool or even as a payments tool, but also look to the industry as a way to be entrepreneurial, especially in this new paradigm.
Yeah. Oh, when you share all of those different projects and the solutions and are the problems that they're solving, it's really important for the audience, because a lot of times we get caught up in the headlines. There's a lot of other coins, a lot of other projects where all the headlines go is like, this rug pull happened here, this scam or hack happened here. But there are so many things that it's reductive, because then you don't get to see all of the amazing solutions that are being created from blockchain. And a lot of times there is a distinct token, and we help people. If you're listening right now, there's a big distinction between a cryptocurrency, a crypto token / coin, right? And they're different. And so you need to be able to distinguish between them to understand, is this a project or is this, something that's actually solving a real world problem? Because there are crypto managers like us at Arbor Digital who we're only investing in, projects and protocols that are good faith and they're solving real world problems. And the really fun thing is that you're going to start getting solutions to problems you didn't even know you had. And that's something very cool that's been happening in this space. And I think is only going to exponentially happen over the next 3 to 5 years. So I think for the audience too, it really helps to have someone of your stature, of your experience, explaining making tangible kind of some of the problems that are being solved. And maybe it may not be the problems that you thought were there, right? And it's important to go over that. So thank you.
Yeah. And one of the biggest problems that people don't realize, especially for, working class people and lower middle class people, money is expensive. Right? If you're middle class, like, I'm not sure how you consider yourself. I consider myself middle class, right? I can eat the fees my bank charges me, right? I build that into as I'm making purchases and creating a budget, right? But if you're already a working class or lower working class, everything you do, money is expensive. Everything from sending money to family could be to abroad. If you're from, a diaspora community and you're sending money back to Mexico or the Caribbean, Western Union charges you an arm and a leg. But also because they're actually still using money orders or cashing their checks, those fees add up. Right? So for the people who have not been to participate, that estimated 55 million in the US that are unbanked, underbanked, or lack access to financial services, right? We can solve these problems for them. Finally, our traditional system has failed them. Like, financial inclusion is not something we should celebrate, right? It's a failure we should be so ashamed of, right? But imagine we can get those people to start participating, making less money, less expensive for them. Once their quality of living goes up, it helps our economy, right? Because that's a new base that we could train them on new skills. How many people have open jobs now? They just can't fill them. People just don't have the skill sets. And as I mentioned, for most emerging technologies, you don't need a degree. You're just getting a certificate program. In crypto, the white paper went out in 2008. No one has a degree. For your audience, if anyone tells you they have a degree in crypto, that's a lie, because no university has a degree program yet. They're building them. So I think the biggest, most important problem for us all to solve, right? And especially for the government, for the Federal Reserve, for the SEC, for Congress was thinking about making money less expensive for those who have been locked out of the system, because we benefit, our economy benefits by bringing these people into the 21st century.
Yeah, and I think for me, and one thing I connected on with many on that is that message too. yes, I would consider me and my wife in our situation, we're definitely middle class now, but it's not where we started. It's not where I started. It's not where the previous generations of my family started. And I can only imagine where we'd be if we didn't start there. But it's all about progress, right? And it's okay. And that's where I'm so excited, because I feel like these opportunities that are created now through crypto, through blockchain, and this emerging technology, and again, in essence, is going to create a new investor base, a new client base for advisors listening, is that's actually happening. Like, it's happening fast, it's happening rapidly, and you need to prepare for it and prepare to service a whole new set of clients, right? And that's an opportunity. And that's why it's okay to say, like, hey, we've been there and we're evolving now, and it's happening, and that's okay. And so I hope that if you're listening now, Cleve and I have helped make you see that opportunity that's evolving, or that's coming to light. So I'd like us to kind of end this conversation. As much as I don't want to end this conversation, we got to end at some point. But I would love for you to share, what are some things that you're excited about in the coming year or two, whether it be blockchain or crypto specific or policy. Free reign right here. Give us something that you're looking forward to in the next year or two.
Yes. Well, for 2022, especially from the crypto perspective, education. We were not able to keep up with the growth of Bitcoin. And so we've been able to scale, build, innovate, but we haven't educated the general public, right? And the data shows that who's driving mainstream adoption is Black and Latinx communities, right? And these communities have been lacked out, right? They want to become new investors, but they may not have the financial literacy necessary to make sure that they're protected. So for the industry overall, I think for us is to really start, really making sure we're being responsible about mainstream adoption during the education. I actually will be leading an organization that will be focused on education, and we will be doing a lot of different things. I was hoping we'd have the launch yet at this point to announce it, but the announcement will be coming. We will be launching announcing a vehicle to just do education, to go across America, to just do that, because the industry, we need to start partnering with public institutions to help them meet this demand, right?
Well, so thank you, because I was about to say, you can't leave me on that cliffhanger there. So what I'll say is thank you for sharing that. And that's something we espouse at Arbor, is it all starts with education. So I can't wait to see the announcement. One thing we should definitely do is we may need to have a follow-up episode or a conversation with Planner DAO, which is a new decentralized organization. I know there's a lot, and I know there's some things happening there. Maybe there's something there. So maybe I'll tease that out for the audience as well.
Nice.
But thank you for sharing. I can't wait to see what comes out. Last thing, where can people find you? Where can they find your book? How can people get in touch with you? Because I'm sure they're just like me, how I was inspired by reading your book and then diving a little bit deeper into your story. I'm sure people are going to listen to this and also get inspired. So where can people find you?
Yes, I'm on crypto Twitter. Believe it or not, it's a thing. So on Twitter, I'm at CMESI, at CMESI. And I post everything I do there. And also, my book, The Clevolution, it's available on Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, Walmart, so you can get it just about anywhere. And obviously I'm on LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect. There are lots of exciting things happening in 2022. I would love to come back. And I want to say that Asset Revolution, I'm all about that. Love the name.
Yeah. Well, again, when we made the name and I knew, I was like, I had you on my list of guests right well before we were making it, because I was like, oh man, there's synergy there.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. Cleve, it's been a pleasure and a joy. I can't wait for us to do this again, and happy holidays to you and yours, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
You too. Thank you for having me, and to your audience, definitely be open-minded about crypto, and lots more to come this year. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.
We appreciate you listening to this edition of the Asset Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Marc Nichols. Please don't forget to let us know how you like the show by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen. For more downloadable digital asset resources and educational opportunities, please visit us at arbordigital.io. We are here to help you get off zero safely and securely. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to tell someone you care about them. Cheers.
We are financial advisors. However, we are not your financial advisor. Unless you're under contract with or actively speaking with Arbor Capital Management or Arbor Digital, a division of Arbor Capital Management. This podcast is just that, a podcast. It is not financial, legal, or tax advice. If you have individual questions, please reach out.